The course that I'm planning to give in the winter 2009 session is Econ 311, which is the intermediate microeconomic theory course that is required of all economics and financial economics majors. It's a rather technical course. It presents all of the tools of analysis that are used in microeconomic theory at the intermediate level. It can be a little bit dry, right? And it's not easy. Right? So it's going to be not easier, it's going to be even harder in a condensed framework. Now the reason I wanted to move to a hybrid format were because of first course related issues. Right? The problem is that to learn to use these tools of microeconomic theory, students have to work with them. Right? They can not sit in class and nod, right, and say, oh yes, yes, that sounds reasonable, but they're not really going to understand them until they apply them, right, to some issue. So there are benefits of active learning. I also, at the same time, wanted to show them why they are learning all of these tools of analysis. Why am I learning this graph and how to use it? And I also think that it's important for them to get interested in economics. They need to understand that the theory can be applied to policy issues. So what I have done is move or create a set of problem sets, assignments, that the students are going to be doing in groups together and then submitting jointly. Then they'll have to actually, I'll show you what one of these looks like in a minute, but they'll actually have to work through the problem set together, apply the tools of analysis to the particular policy question that they're led through sort of step by step, right, to actually end up in the end analyzing a policy issue, right, or an analytical issue. So the problem sets are really designed to promote active learning, right, and also applied active learning, right, to a particular policy issue. The second reason I wanted to hybridize the course was to deal with special sessions. I've taught now both 311 and the principles of macroeconomics in the special sessions, which are condensed, either very condensed in the winter session or somewhat condensed in the summer session, with relatively long classes. And I noticed that I tend to lose the students toward the end of the class. They can maybe go an hour and a half or 2 hours, but the last hour their eyes glaze over. Right? And so in part what I did was I cut the actual in-class face-to-face part shorter. And then for about half the classes, I think it is, for about half the classes they're doing some computer lab work, right, working on these problem sets that are then submitted online. They have to actually use Word Draw and the Word Equation Editor to complete the assignments for submission. Now, the other, so one of my reasons for doing this is to get out of the lecture format for at least half of the classes. Right? Also, the problem with the weather uncertainty in winter session, I've run into winter sessions before where next to the last day of class, the school is closed and then everything becomes chaotic and they're taking the exam on Saturday and things like this. So I thought, okay, what I wanted to do was create the possibility of time shifting, right, because time shifting is one of the benefits of a hybrid course. And the time shifting that I might potentially use, depending upon the weather, right, is to switch what would be the time that they would be working jointly in groups, right, into a day when class is canceled, because they can communicate with each other and download the problem sets and talk back and forth by email, or maybe, I haven't actually activated the chat feature in Blackboard yet, but we might use that. And so what I could do is shift around, and the time period that they essentially would have been working on their own, I'll commandeer, right, to have another face-to-face session to be able to actually finish the material in the course. Okay, so as I said, the proposed hybrid solution is these online policy-oriented problem sets that analyze real policy questions, take the students through a logical series of steps. They do them in small groups outside the usual class sessions, and they're assigned, they're sitting there on Blackboard for them to download, right, and they are turned in then online. Now in designing this, one issue I faced was how to split up the time in the face-to-face class time and the online problem set time. Initially, in the regular semesters, I have a set of problem sets, and I discuss those in a class session. I provide them to the students, and they hopefully actually do them outside class before we discuss them. But I find that not everybody does, so they're not getting the benefit of the actual having to work through on their own the problem. When I looked at my syllabus, I realized I was taking about 20% of the class time anyway to go over these problem sets. And so I thought, well, about 20% or roughly would be good, right, for the hybrid part of the course. So I did give this course in summer '08, and I calculated that I had 22% of the total time in the course was the online version. I decreased that a little bit because I was very rushed at the end of the time period in the summer to actually get in the last bits of material. So I took a little bit back to the actual face-to-face and left the hybrid problem set part at about 20% of the class time. The second issue was how to time this. Now, especially since one of my ulterior motives is to be able to switch a face-to-face session into what would normally be the online part. The question would be, well, how should I set this up? I ended up setting it up relatively evenly timed, right, throughout the course. So there's a little bit of predictability to what happens. The non-face-to-face time is on the Wednesdays and Fridays, and it's the second half of the class, more or less, right, on Wednesdays and Fridays. So at the very least, there's a Friday component, which is that I could grab at the very last to switch around for some face-to-face. And another issue I faced was how to organize the groups, right, for group assignments. I'm going to micromanage that a little bit by looking at the students' backgrounds from their transcripts to find out how much mathematics they've had. Because in a group, I've found it's pretty disastrous if nobody knows the math very well, right? And then they have trouble doing the problem sets. If I can distribute the people who have a lot of math background among the groups, right, then I'm kind of making a little teaching assistants out of the people who know the mathematics already, so they can work in the group, right, and and hopefully help the other students. Now, well, the bit of a film clip that I'm going to show you today actually emerged from some feedback from a previous hybrid workshop when I explained what I was trying to do. There was some concern expressed that because the students had to use Microsoft Word and the Microsoft Equation Editor to actually finish the problem sets and submit them, there was some concern that the students would not be as experienced with this as I am at this point after years of working with trying to do diagrams in Word for economics. So what I did is I created an online tutorial using Jing that essentially takes them through all the steps of what they would have to do to actually draw lines and put in text boxes and the like in Microsoft Word. So I'll be showing you a couple of the segments, right, of that. Okay. Uh-oh. How do I get back to the...
Just hit escape.
Hit escape, okay. Okay. Then I need to get back to this part. Okay. Now, if I go back here, all right. No. Maybe it's this one. Okay, let me get... Yeah, I need the blackboard, the regular blackboard. Okay. All right, I'm fine. 3:11. Okay, so this is what the part of the blackboard looks like, where the assignments are stored and they're turned in and the like. So there are 6 of them all told in the course. I'm just going to show you the first one, which is supply and demand, right? Not surprisingly for economics. And the first thing is the actual file, right? That is the problem set. Right, so this is a Word file. and it presents a demand function and a supply function that the students will be working with. This one is about gasoline, prices of gasoline. It seemed topical last summer. And basically what this problem set is going to show them is that if there is an expectation, this pi E, is the expected increase in the price of gasoline between this week and next week. And what the problem set in the end shows is that if both the consumers and the producers expect a certain increase in the price of gasoline, what's going to happen is that the price increase is going to occur right away, right? Fundamentally because the consumers will speed up their purchases if they expect it to be more expensive in the second week, in the next time period. The suppliers will withhold the supply from the market if they expect the price to be higher next week. And so you'll find an expected price increase occurs immediately, right, in the time period. So they work through that. And the way that this file works, it's a Word file. It has the problem on it, but then it also has a place where they can start to draw diagrams, right, to draw the supply curve, draw the demand curve, find the equilibrium, change the expected increase in the price of gasoline, shift the curves around, right, and see what would happen, right, as a result. So they have to work that through. I'll show you the answer key in a minute. The second problem has to do with policies in the Mexican corn market in terms of government subsidies and other policies that the Mexican government might use in the corn market, so they have to trace through what the economic costs of these are. Okay, so now if I go out of this, I'll go back. Nope. Okay. Maybe I should. Yeah. Okay. All right. One of the concerns that was expressed was whether or not students would be able to do the draw feature and equation editor in Word to do these problem sets. So what I did is I created a tutorial, right? And essentially what the tutorial does, it has the words that explain to the students what to do, but then in addition, it has a demonstration that I did in Jing for these. Okay, now I need to get this oriented properly. Okay, there we go. So they can call this up. It's in the assignment. You see a drawing toolbar down here in the bottom of your screen. To put it there, what you can do is click on Tools, click twice, and then go down to where it says Customize, click there. Right? And if you are checking the tabs up here, make sure you have the Toolbars tab under Customize. Then go down to where it says Drawing, click on the box for Drawing, and then close that out. And down at the bottom now, you'll see you have the Draw toolbar with various icons and the word Draw on the far left-hand side. Okay. Now I need to go back to there it is. Okay, to the tutorial. Okay, so the rest of this explains how to draw a line corresponding to an equation. They can play with the line a bit, how to rotate it, how to shift it, and the like. Then I show them how to do a text box on it, and I'm going to show you the very last one, which puts in the supply curve. They've drawn the other part of this before, the demand curve, and labeled it D. Okay, so our next task is to put in the supply curve, and to do that we have the equation Q is equal to 2P as the supply curve,
And so we want to draw a straight line. We go, again, get straight line. Then start at the origin, have a, now see what's happened? I've inadvertently again clicked on a line that was already there. I need to not have that line. Get my own line, my new line, and start in, there we are now, and go with a slope of 1/2, because for every 1 that the price goes up, the quantity goes over 2. Right? And so we would draw our supply curve that way. Right? Let me let it end there by letting it go. All right, so that's our supply curve. Now we want to label that with, you know, it's a little long. Let me make it shorter.
Stream of consciousness.
Shorten it up by clicking on that right-hand circle and bringing it down further. All right, a little shorter. And then we want to label it, so again we go to the text box down at the bottom here, pull up a text box, click more or less where we want it, and there it is. Then we can make it reasonably small. Okay, I want to put an S in it about the same size as the D. So format font, we used 18 if I recall for the demand curve. So we want 18, okay. And then in there, we'll put a capital S. All right, so far so good. Again, we want to get rid of the border. So down here, if we go to the paintbrush, say no line, the border disappears. And then we want to move that around a little better. It's not quite where the S is, so we'll click on it someplace other than a corner and move it down. Notice that I'm putting it in the middle of the line so it doesn't interfere with them. And there's our S, right, for the supply curve. Okay, now the equilibrium here is going to be at a price of 2 and a quantity of 4. So we might want to mark exactly where that is with dotted lines. So we'd start with a line, and the equilibrium price is 2. We'll move our line over to there.
Let's just dot it.
Right, and we want it dotted. So if you see down here, there are these options for various dotted lines, dash style it says. So click on that, pick one. How about this one? Right, and so that actually should then end up as a dotted line. It doesn't show so clearly. Let me move it away from the other line and make sure it's dotted. Ah, it's dotted. Okay. All right. So there we are with the dotted line. Somehow it got all the way over here. Oh.
No. I was in my stream of consciousness of, oh, I know what went wrong. Okay. Okay. So does anybody have any questions on this? Just one more thing. The way this is set up, they get the assignment, they turn it in, okay? Then the answer key pops up about 10 minutes after it's due, right? And then I return the graded assignment to them, and this is one of the assignments from last time. The students did pretty well with the equations and the like. They got very creative with the diagrams, as you'll see, using color for the equilibrium points. So they did manage fairly well. And this was the first one, which they did fairly well. Yeah.
Just a quick question that's not about the technology, but you presented a sort of a showing yourself sort of trial and error in your way through it. Did they like that? I mean, was that I would think would create a sense of connection with you?
I did not get feedback on how they reacted to that. I did it because I know that, well, when I work with this tool, with the word draw, this happens all the time. You click on the wrong thing, and so I didn't want it to be perfect. I figured they'd learn from the mistakes, and because I know they're going to click on the wrong line at some point, and it helps if they have some forewarning that that's going to happen. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
That's a little more personal.
Do you have any? I thought so.
Do you have any students using a Mac?
I did not. Now, is that going to be a problem?
No, it's just going to look different.
Oh, okay.
Just the way it draws and has the floating menus, or even the newer version of Word is going to look different.
Ah, okay.
which could
Oh,
become
that's
a
right.
bug,
Word
because
has
you might have
changed in a big way, hasn't it?
Yeah, and the
Yeah,
Mac
it really
version
has.
has got just it's drawing stuff in different places, and so that presentation would be.
Not useful.
I don't see it in any way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you probably it would be kind of cruddy to have to redo that. But you would at some point that might become an issue because what's happening is I'm noticing students just ramping up their use of Macs and stuff, which is kind of
Well,
Okay.
what I had planned to do was actually use the economics department computer lab for,
yeah.
and they would, whoops,
That's where they could do it.
they would have availability to this software there. But if they're trying to work
Somewhere else.
sort of somewhere else, which is my intention for them to eventually do, then they would have troubles if they don't have compatible machines and technology and programs.
And I don't even know if we have does Jane work on a
Please
Mac?
use it if it works.
I don't know.
Mac has a similar.
It changed from
Does it?
It changed with the new Macs.
Yeah, it did.